Are you currently struggling with knowing where to start with building a fashion photography portfolio? Let me just take this opportunity to tell you that you're not alone. As someone who's spent half their life now as a photographer, this is one of the most common struggles I come across in a lot of beginner photographers. As a beginner, it's hard enough to know where to start with photography in general, let alone knowing how to start building a creative team and creating a fashion portfolio. For those of you who are new to my channel, my name is Kaylee June and I'm a beauty and fashion photographer. In this video, we're going to go through some tips as to how you can start building your own fashion photography portfolio on a small budget as a beginner. In this video as well, I'm going to be posting some of my own work from when I was just starting out as a fashion photographer, and you guys can kind of see and relate to maybe some of the images that I used to take, just to kind of give you a bit of a behind the scenes look into how I started as well. And I'm just going to add a little bit more information prior to you guys watching the full video. Now, this video is not going to be about how to build a creative team, because I feel that as a beginner, when you're starting out with a portfolio and particularly fashion photography work, it is hard to contact creatives or even people that are just starting out like yourself without any work to show for it. So I'm really going back to bare bones with this video. We're going to look at how you can start building your own fashion photography portfolio from literally nothing. And to be quite honest, I still do photo shoots today where it's just me and the model, and I haven't had a creative team on board, and some of those shoots have been my favorite shoots overall. So we're really going to talk about getting your first few images for a fashion photography portfolio without going into building a creative team and just having you and the model. And I really want to put a little reminder in here as well. When we're talking about fashion photography, it is important to know about certain fashion trends that are going around currently. So it's really important that you do your research as well. Before we get into any of the information today, it's so important to plan before your shoot. Fill your online social media feeds with everything fashion, everything beauty, everything that is really where you want to take your work. I think sometimes one of the first mistakes people make when they're getting into fashion photography is to not look at these kinds of things. And that's really difficult to try and pitch your work eventually. It's really hard to try and evolve your work into a fashion portfolio because so much of it is about the fashion, it is about the clothes, and it is about drawing from current trends. But getting past all that information now, we're going to get straight into the video and we're going to go through some really important tips. So first things first, obviously you need a model. My tips around this initially are don't be too picky. A lot of people when they're just starting out expect to sort of get like Gigi Hadid for their portfolio, and unfortunately even for more experienced people that's just not gonna happen. So it's really important to not be too picky with the kinds of models that you do get initially. Getting more experienced models for your portfolio is something that comes along with time and a bit of patience and a bit of hard work too. My tips for finding and shooting models would be to reach out to some family and friends. Now I know that some people just scoff at the idea of this, but this is something that I used to do when I was just starting out all the time. I would get some of my friends out and we'd just have a day full of shooting, and let me tell you, it really improves your confidence a little knowing you're able to boss around like a friend or a family member rather than someone at that stage that you don't even know that's a model or a professional model. It gives you a little bit more confidence to be able to do that because you know those people well, and it can be intimidating working with models for the first time or someone that you don't know. The second part of this tip would be actually to reach out to some Facebook groups. There's quite a lot, depending on the city that you live in. There might be like a creative Facebook group for a lot of people who are aspiring photographers and other aspiring models and creatives. Reach out on those platforms and try to find other models that might be at the same stage as you who are looking at getting into modeling, maybe haven't had any prior experience. And there's actually a lot of aspiring models out there who are looking for photographers that will help them build their portfolios as well. So it's important to reach out on those platforms, but also don't be afraid to ask family and friends. Use these opportunities to find the best angles and features of the models you are shooting and work with them. Don't continuously think to yourself, oh, this model isn't high fashion enough or they're not pretty enough. Everyone needs to start somewhere, and sooner enough you'll realize that finding the best angles and features of a model's face is something that you'll have to do on the regular. And the sooner you know how to do it quickly, especially on set, the better. So don't be afraid of using an inexperienced model or a family member. Use it as an experience to build your confidence and skills as a photographer. Keep in mind that building your first fashion photography portfolio is likely not going to be something that you'll be able to pitch to Vogue, let's be real, but it will give you leverage. It will allow you to have something physically to show to potentially more experienced models who might be interested in your work. There may also be smaller or local brands that can see the potential in the images that you've created. Either way, it will give you the leverage to pursue creating more amazing work in future, and it'll get you on a roll. Okay, so the next tips are all about makeup. And can I just really make this abundantly clear from the start? Less is more when it comes to makeup. Natural makeup is a huge trend at the moment, and I know sometimes as a beginner it can be so tempting to think of the most wild makeup looks or the most wild fashion shoots, but we just have to remember as well that it is also about selling the clothes, and makeup should be secondary to selling the clothes most of the time. Getting the model to do their own makeup is a great way to start, and letting them know what you want. More often than not, they know their own face best, so it is a really good way to begin in that sense. It also can be difficult to organize a makeup artist at this stage, so I do recommend for your first few fashion shoots keeping it very simple. And the next point we're going to refer to is hair. Now, this is something that's really easy to forget about, and it's something that I will admit I have forgotten about on many shoots before. It sort of just seems sometimes as like that secondary thing that comes later on, and sometimes you do just kind of wing it. I wouldn't recommend doing this all the time though, because a bad hairstyle can make or break a photo shoot, and it can be very, very difficult to edit in post. However, hair is something that I would recommend similarly to with makeup in keeping it simple. Keep it natural. A simple updo or leaving it down is usually best, and less fuss. Having natural looks in your first few shoots are a really great way to start your portfolio. Unfortunately, when I was first starting out, my first instinct was to dress girls in really big ball gowns, glittery blue eyeshadow, and really big hair. You can do this as well if you want, but if you're looking at leading into earning a living with fashion photography, I highly recommend sticking to natural looks, because that will really take you very far, and really looking at styles that include a bare minimum kind of vibe. And now for the main part, which is all about fashion. So my favorite way to incorporate fashion on photo shoots before I was able to have a stylist come on board for a photo shoot to help was actually to go to secondhand stores. I would make it into a really fun affair actually, and I would go out every weekend with my mom, and we'd go to lots of different secondhand stores and go thrifting, and I would have a lot of fun just like looking at different textures and looking at different patterns and colors and seeing how they could work into my own shoots. I would recommend here again though, doing your research beforehand, having a look at current trends. I did not always do this when I was first starting, and I often went with a fantasy theme or something that I thought was fashion but wasn't really fashion at the time. And let me be clear about this, it is totally fine to experiment at this stage in your career. It's totally fine to go wild with your shoots if that's what you prefer to do. But if you do want to move along a little bit quicker in earning money from your fashion photography or potentially pitching to a lot of commercial brands, I would recommend doing your research and keeping up with certain trends as well if possible. And the next point, equipment. I'm gonna say this a little bit louder for the people in the back. You do not need an expensive camera kit to start building a portfolio. Oh, that's something I wanted to get off my chest for about 10 years. But the main point of this is work with the gear that you have. If you knowingly have a camera, for example, that doesn't perform well in low light, then steer away from photographing too late in the day or in darker interior rooms. Or if you don't have a lens that allows for a wider aperture or a blurred background, for example, f2.8, be more aware of the background in the shots that you are taking, and be more specific with how you want the surroundings to look. Plan ahead of time according to the equipment that you do possess. Even if you can't afford to invest in an SLR camera or something of a little bit more decent quality at this time, definitely consider working with a smartphone. If you do own one, most people know that smartphones are very, very capable of taking some very decent quality images these days. They're obviously not going to replace a DSLR or mirrorless camera, but you have to work with what you've got. Like I did when I first started out, I used a point and shoot. The next tip I'm going to mention, use natural light. It's free, it's incredibly versatile. Don't always feel the need to hop into a studio to create a fashion portfolio. Many of the editorials and campaigns out there these days are shot using natural light, so work with what you have once again. And don't be afraid to experiment. Also, don't be afraid to experiment with angles, expressions, and compositions. Add interesting variations to your portfolio so you don't have too many same images, and that you do have a little bit more variety in them. And don't be afraid to experiment with Photoshop too, but I do need to say this quite loudly again. Less is more when it comes to editing your images. I really do need to be clear about this one, because overdoing it with skin editing or color grading can really lessen the quality of your images. And in turn, it can really lessen the quality of the portfolio that you're trying to build. I have lots and lots of tutorials on this channel alone that are completely free and that will help you use editing to complement your images and not overtake them. I also have a beauty retouching for beginners course, which I've actually just launched again, and I do have enrollments available open for that. So if you are interested interested in taking your beauty retouching in particular a bit further with your images, definitely feel free to go and check out the link in the description box below. I have all the information available for when the course is due to start and end. And if you'd like to sign up, definitely click on the description box link to go and enroll. So now to end this video, when starting out, sometimes the quickest and easiest way to start building a fashion photography portfolio is to start by yourself. Initially, this can really make it happen quicker because you're only relying mainly on yourself, but it also can give you an eye for all the different elements of fashion photography. It puts yourself in other creatives' positions so you can figure out how the whole process really works overall. Because eventually one day you will be working with a bigger creative team, and more than likely they're going to be asking you questions and really be needing your input. Okay guys, so I hope you really enjoyed this video today on how you can start creating a fashion photography portfolio and on a budget. I hope I've answered some questions here about creating a fashion photography portfolio. I know it can be intimidating, and sometimes it's just about getting that first shoot done. And once you've done that first shoot, then you can really get on a roll and you can start creating the content that you want to create. If you do have any questions about this video, please feel free to put them in the comments section below. And as I said, if any of you are interested in signing up for beauty retouching for beginners, I do have the link in the description box as well. Give this video a like if you liked it, and please be sure to subscribe to my channel because I'll be putting out much more content in future. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye! This is the first time I've looked at these images in 10 years, and I got them all from my DeviantArt, which is still online. I wouldn't recommend going and checking that out. Oh, it's the blue eyeshadow for me.